So you're thinking about moving back to Africa, whether that be from the United States, Europe, Canada, anywhere within the diaspora. It sounds like a beautiful idea, and it can be. But there are some things that I wish someone had told me before I made the big move in 2023 from the United States to Africa. In previous videos within this playlist, I've talked about why I moved, the culture shocks, the things that you need to expect when you move, the process. I've made a whole playlist that you can go ahead and watch after watching this video. I even talked about how I found my purpose and how I rebuilt myself. I'm going to be sharing with you 5 different tips, so stick along. The biggest tip I want to give you is to make sure that you are not romanticizing the big move. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes people come from a situation where they really want to make a difference in their life. They want to change their situation. They want to move locations. And so they drastically romanticize moving from wherever they're living to Africa. And they forget that Africa is a continent, and well, different countries in Africa have different expectations, and they're also countries just like any other country. What I mean by this is that it's so easy to imagine Africa as peaceful, as freedom, with a lot of rich culture, and something that is to be enjoyed and something that's really nice and wonderful. You might find yourself thinking you're in an African country, you're in you're in an African country. Now that's over romanticizing. I'm sorry about that. You might find yourself thinking that, oh, since you are in an African country in Africa, that, you know, the culture is very awesome, it's rich. But once you get there, you're gonna find that people are not familiar with different cultures. They don't know your culture. And so you get to learn about their culture, but since they don't know your culture, it's a culture shock for them accepting you into their communities because of the difference of your culture. And for African people, it's very easy to accept you, to try to learn from you, but just know that beforehand, sometimes they don't know a lot about your culture, they don't know a lot about your way of life, and you have to integrate. So don't over romanticize early on until you start building your routines, your circle and your community yourself as well. For instance, the smallest thing I would say in dominant Muslim countries of Africa, people mostly dress modestly. You don't really find people in crop tops and shorts, like booty shorts. And so those kind of things, like, no one's gonna force you not to wear those, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a culture shock when you wear those and you go out in public, because people are just not familiar with seeing people in person wearing those kind of things in daylight, just going about their day, going shopping and going out to the market and stuff like that. It's just something that is not very common. And so those little cultural things, you have to kind of realize that people just see them on TV sometimes, or sometimes people really, like, it doesn't happen in community, so people are not familiar with it. And you're over romanticize, you come over, you have a different culture, and there's not a lot of cultural diversity. It can be something that you need to navigate for a little bit until you have it figured out. For instance, if you go to someone's house and you go to the bathroom, you might not find toilet paper in the bathroom. These are little things that I'm sharing. Like, these are little examples that I'm sharing just to tell you, like, you know, it's different. It's a different environment. Don't over romanticize thinking that you're gonna find everything that you're leaving behind in your previous country and more in Africa, because most of the time that's how people look at it when they're making the big move. They know that Africa is really rich in community and culture and stuff. People over romanticize the idea of moving and not really, you know, reserving a spot of, oh, I might miss some of the things that I already know back home when I'm making this shift. Now I realize that I haven't really expanded on you not being able to find toilet paper when you go to like someone else's home and you need to use the bathroom. The reason why is because a lot of people use bidets, or they use bidets. A lot of people do, or they use like this little kettle bucket thingy. I don't know the name of it really. Sometimes when I'm making these videos, it's like everything I know just phew, they're gone. They fly out of my head. Anyways, they use water to clean themselves, and most of the time they don't have toilet paper to pat dry. And so some of the times that could come as a culture shock, because maybe you're not even used to using water, and let alone not even having toilet paper to pat yourself dry. I don't know, but there are little things that you over romanticize, that maybe those little things that you're not going to find have a meaning for you. So just putting it out there, that there are little things that can vary, and so don't over romanticize your move until you really experience it. You understand that this is not gonna be exactly like your dream. This is not going to take away all your problems. This is not going to fix your life crisis. This is just like as if you were living in another country. It's a country with people, with values, with different different variables that are going to happen that you can't control. So make sure that you do not over romanticize this move. And I cannot expand enough on this, because a lot of people who come from the diaspora, they are so out of touch with reality. That's the kindest way I can put it, because they've lived abroad so long that they have this idea of Africa in their heads, and it's not exactly like that. And so the shock could be something that is unexpected and really hard to overcome. Anyways, let's close this chapter. You can obviously tell that I'm really passionate about that. It's because it happens. It's so common to happen. Either ways, if it happens to you, don't worry. It's common. It happens. But just make sure that now you know. And the reality also includes having power outages. If you were living abroad, sometimes that there are power outages when you have really bad snow or really, really bad rainfall. But it's so rare that when it happens, it's even unexpected. You're not planned for it. You're not prepared for it. You don't have flashlights sitting on your nightstand, or somewhere just readily available for you to use, because you anticipate these kind of things, because they're not common. But these are things that are common in most African countries. It's common to have your Wi-Fi interrupted. It's common to have power outages. It's common to have systems moving a lot slower than you would expect them to. It's just those things are common. So make sure that you leave a spot for that, realizing that, I need to prep ahead or be prepared that this could happen. There is also bureaucracy in Africa, and I'm just going to leave it at that, because there's so much to be said on that. I'm just going to leave it at that. But just know that it happens. It is a reality. Tip number 1, to close it all off, make sure that you come with a lot of love and not expecting perfection. Prepare for reality, not perfection. Say it with me, and I hold your hand while you say this. Prepare for reality and not perfection, because when you prepare for perfection, you're going to be let down. You're going to be deceived. You're not going to be, it's not going to meet your standards, because everyone's idea of perfection is so different. So do not prepare for perfection. That's a mouthful. Make sure that you are prepared. Make sure that you're ready for reality. I can't say prepare for perfection. No, don't prepare for perfection. Okay, let's move on to the next tip. I hope you got this one. The biggest tip that I could give you, the second tip that I have for you, is to make sure that you build your support system early on before you even move. Make sure that you have your support system even before you move. You initiated some sort of support system even before you make the big move. You have an idea of some people, some anchors, some systems in place before you even make the move. It's very important not to wait until you arrive to look for help, because once you arrive, it's going to be a lot more trickier, because you don't have a lot more time to make research. Maybe you need things done a lot faster. And if you don't have help, that's not going to happen. Like I've mentioned in my previous videos, that, systems move a lot slower. People, services, everything is just so slow. So make sure that you have help already in place before you make that big move. For instance, make sure that, you have people who, even if they're not your friends or your direct family members, that you can call if you need some local services that you yourself don't know where to go get those services done. It's not like, there's a website where you could go and find help or resources to navigate your way around. There's just people that you need to connect with that would make it a lot easier for you to integrate. So make sure you're talking to people who've moved back before, and you're connecting with people online, and you're also asking questions. It's a great step that maybe you've watched this whole playlist that I've put together, I've curated for you, and you're getting to learn more about, the experience of someone who's moved back. I moved back since 2023, so it's about a couple of years now, right? And who's been, going back and forth for vacation and stuff like that before even making the move, and now who's moved back. Just make sure that you're connecting with people online, you're asking questions, and you aren't so, uninformed. Uninformed is the right word, because we're not trying to get canceled before we even get known. Just make sure that you're not uninformed before you make that big move, and you have some connections already established. Having people whom you can turn to makes the whole lot of difference, makes the world of a difference when you have people that you can turn to. Because once you move, you feel like, it's almost a feeling like, I've left all my world behind, I left all my life behind. That's my water bottle. It's almost like, you left all your world behind, what and now you don't know anything. You have to learn everything, and it's so hard sometimes. So make sure that you have some people whom you can turn to, because it'll make your life a lot easier. And it's so easy to feel lonely. It's so real, like especially the few months that when you moved, before you have your community, before you have your support system, before you have people who... My hijab doesn't want to stay in place today. It's giving me attitude, and I want to give attitude back too. Okay, let's dial it down. Sorry guys, I feel like you guys are sitting right next to me and we're just chatting and we're having a conversation. This is so fun, by the way. Anyways, today I'm having fun making this video, and I hope you're having fun watching it with me. My personality is definitely wanting to peep through, and it's like coming through the cracks. Anyways, make sure that you have people whom you can rely to. Feeling lonely, especially the few months when you have made that move, is so easy, and it could lead to depression. It could lead to you second guessing whether or not you've made the right decision by moving. It could lead to you just like hating everything all of a sudden. So make sure you have, see what I mean? Make sure that you have people you can turn to, because you do not want to get lonely. It's such a rabbit hole when you get lonely, and when you feel like you're alone and you don't know anything, you don't know where to go, and you feel like it's just you. It's just not fun anymore. It's not going to be fun. So having a community really, really helps. Now let's move on to tip number 3. Tip number 3 would be to have a plan in hand, but be very flexible, because it's not like your previous place where you've lived almost half your life and you know where exactly everything is, and you know how exactly most of the things turn out and most services are done. This is a new place. Even if you think you know something about it, you don't. You're gonna learn a lot more than you know, so you don't really know anything about this new place. You have to learn as you go. Make sure that you have a plan of what you might expect, of what you kind of want, but be open to be flexible when it doesn't go your way, because you don't control all the variables. You could only do your part. The basic things I would say is know where you're going to stay, know how you're going to make money, and know where and how you're going to move around. That's basic. Know who you're going to stay with if you don't already have your place, and have a plan of how long you're going to stay with that person, and what it is your plan B if that goes south. Because people could tell you all they can, oh no, move on, come on, you can stay with us, we have a guest place that you can stay, it's no problem. Once you move, things could change, circumstances could change. It could be that, it's not what they expected it to be. It could be that the situation changes all of a sudden and you are left with nowhere to stay. Then what are you going to do? You need to have a plan B. And you certainly need to have a way to earn money. If you don't have money, girl, man, boy, whoever's watching this video, the world is gonna stop. It's gonna feel like it's stopped on you. It's gonna feel like you can't do anything. You're gonna be so worried, you're gonna be so stressed. So make sure that you have some savings. But besides your savings, make sure that you have some way that you're generating money, and some way that you can access your money. Now, access to your money is very, very important. The number one thing, even if you are just thinking about it, I would say, is to notify your bank that you are thinking of overseas travel, and once you travel, you will access your bank account, because it's going to be so dramatic if you travel and all of a sudden your bank thinks that, oh my gosh, this person who's always lived, I mean, me and my scarf are gonna just go at it today. But anyways, your bank might think, oh my goodness, this person who has never left the state, let alone the city, let alone the state, is now all of a sudden in freaking, I don't know which country in Africa. They're gonna think it's a scam. And once they think it's a scam, guess what they're gonna do? They will block your bank accounts. They will block your cards and ask you to come into the office, come into the branch, because we see some unusual activity on your account. Then what are you going to do about that? You can't go into the branch and you won't have access to your money. And it's certainly very rare to have people who have second people on their bank accounts who can basically do the same transactions as they would and send them money. Even the process of sending money overseas, it's just make sure that you have a way to access your money at all times, and you have a way to generate money at all times. Just make sure that you do. I know as a Muslim, we're not going to comment on my hijab anymore. I'm just going to act like let's go. So anyways, as a Muslim, we know that Allah provides for us. As you who are watching this, if you don't believe in God, you believe in whatever, we know that we have a source that is providing for us. Allah provides for us. As a Muslim, Allah provides for us, but we do our part, right? We tie our camel first, and then we pray that Allah protects our camel. We don't let it loose and then expect to find it in the same place. It doesn't work like that. So make sure that you have some way of making money, of having some income, of sustaining yourself. That's it. And now let's move into the fact that you need to move around. You need to have a system in place of making sure you know the way that you're going to move around. In my previous videos, I mentioned how I just shipped over my car. Now, I explained why and everything in detail in my previous videos, so make sure you go watch. It's in the same playlist. But if you're not able to do that, you're not experienced, you don't know how to go about that, just make sure that you have a way to transport yourself. It's very important, because transportation is key. Or at least you learn about different transport. Man, that character that's coming through this video, I think I'm starting to get comfortable on camera. Anyways, just make sure that you have some way of having transport when you're in this new country, because you want to make sure that you can move around. If you can't move around, then you become a burden. Then you become a burden on other people. You become really hard to live with. Imagine if you have to give someone a ride every single day for everywhere they're going. You're not going to be free. You're not going to enjoy yourself. You're not going to have fun, because you have to wait on someone. For me personally, I like being independent. I like being able to do what I want to do. I like being able to go where I want to go, and I don't want to wait for someone else to come pick me up and drop me off, and pick me up and drop me off. It just seems like I'm relying on that person too much, and I need to rely on me and have other people assist me when I want them to assist me, but not because I need them to assist me. That's just how I think, thinking like this would make life a lot easier for you, because you cannot control the actions of other people. So you make sure that you maximize what you can control, and then minimize what you let in the hands of other people, so that way you don't get deceived. Saying deceived almost sound like I wanted to say deceased, but I meant deceived. Okay, let's move on. Tip number 3 is also to make sure that you have at least backup plans for where you're going to stay. You have backup plans for how you're going to be moving around, and you definitely need backup plans for where you're going to get your money and how you're going to access your money. A lot of backup plans for at least making sure that you have access to money, because relationships can change real quick if all of a sudden you become broke in a different country. Trust me. Be open for like delays and stuff like that, because it's normal. Like I said in my previous videos, people are living really chill lives. Like, the idea of like homestead, like living, the idea that it's so slow and chill. I feel like that's the vibe here in Africa, in a lot of different countries in Africa. It's just so chill. Everybody's chill, everybody's vibing. So make sure that you expect the delays. If you're expecting to get something done, make sure that expect it, something that could take you maybe an hour to get done in the US or another foreign country that has systems in place to make it go a lot faster. Expect it to take a day or two, or 3, or a week. Just expect the unexpected. Delays are normal, and be prepared for them and have a plan for them just in case. Number 3, the takeaway really is that adaptability is your superpower. It's going to be your superpower, and you need to stick with it, because if you're not able to adapt, you can't live there. Like, if you're not able to adapt in different environments, it's going to be super hard for you. Just make sure that you're open to adapting and you're open to learning new ways of life. That way you don't feel like it's hard, because it already is hard. So make sure that you are open to adapting to new situations, new variables, new everything. Now, I was mentioning how, if you were going to wear crop tops and booty shorts, that it might come off as a cultural shock, because there's not a lot of cultural diversity in which country in Africa you might be going to. And so you need to be open-minded and understand that though it's very culture rich, it might not be culturally diverse. Now, tip number 4 goes into that by really taking the advice. You might not fit in right away, and that's okay. In life, in different situations, circumstances, we don't fit in right away, but once we learn to adapt and we find our way, it becomes super easy, and it becomes something that we end up loving. If this was a country that your native, your ancestors come from this country, and you've lived abroad and now you are moving back to this country, and you haven't lived all your life in this country, then know that you might still feel like you don't fit in. And that's okay. It happens more often than you think, especially, for instance, if you lived in, for instance, Europe or the United States, especially the United States. If you've lived your entire life in the United States, or even a longer time in the United States than you've lived in your home country, when you return to your home country, they're going to be referring to you as an American. And so that creates a little bit of an identity crisis as well, because for you living in the US, everybody was referring to you as an African, and then you move back to Africa, to your home country, and you're referred to as an American. It's just that there's just identity shock that really is easy for it to happen. So just make sure that you understand that it's okay if you don't feel like you fit in right away. You might feel like you're a stranger in your own country, and that can happen so easily. I've mentioned how I've talked a lot about this in my previous videos, so make sure you go watch the playlist. And I think it's time for me to stop saying go watch the playlist, because you guys might be fed up with it already if you aren't. And really, sometimes people just might treat you like you don't belong. And at first I took offense to it, but then second, when I thought about it, I was just like, you know what? It's not their fault. Maybe you don't belong. Maybe for them, they genuinely feel like you don't belong, and it doesn't come from a place of evil or anything like that. It's just that maybe they just don't feel the connection with you, and that's okay. Not everybody's gonna feel the connection right away with you, especially when you think about it. When you go to a developing African country where people have different lived experiences, and you come from a completely different country that's already developed, that has systems in place to make your life easier, that is definitely developed, and it's a different environment. So coming from that environment, you also have your lived experiences. You have your shared thought of what to expect in life and how you do your life. And when you move to a new environment, to a different country in Africa, you have to understand that you and the people you will find do not have shared experiences. You haven't lived the same life. So for people to feel like you don't belong, I don't think it's coming from a place of evil or a place of being mean. It's just that that's how they feel. It's just that that's really what it is, and you have to kind of learn. For instance, people not having toilet paper in their bathrooms like everywhere else in the US might, like you would expect to come find toilet paper in all the bathrooms, but it's not the same in African countries. And so you have to understand that those little details make up a difference, even if you don't feel it, even if you don't express it, even if you don't outwardly come out and say it. It comes through. And for people to feel like you don't belong, they might not even mean to make you feel that way. So give yourself some grace and understand that this is also a learning curve for you. Understand that you're learning new ways. It's almost like you're new again. And this is what I've mentioned in my previous video, that when you change environments, you have the opportunity to reinvent yourself. So take the positive sides of this and don't take all the negative sides to heart, because it's not meant to be taken to heart. It's meant to be taken with a grain of salt, just because that's just the reality of it. Give yourself a lot of grace. The biggest takeaway for tip number 4 is understanding that integration takes time. Tip number 5 is to definitely know your why. Know why you have made the move. I've explained why I've personally moved in my previous videos. Oh my gosh, I said I wasn't going to mention my playlist. If you haven't watched it, it's time to watch it, and then come back in the comments and let me know to stop saying the playlist because you've watched it. Anyways, I've made videos about why I moved, why I made the move. Make sure that you understand your why. Know your why. It's very important, because sometimes you need to hold on to your why. There are going to be days where you're going to be questioning everything. If you were still in your previous country abroad, from whichever country, whether that be Europe, Canada, United States, if you were anywhere else previously, you had your life figured out, and then maybe all of a sudden you made this huge shift. So make sure that you know why you've made this huge shift, because there will be times where you would ask yourself why you've even made this switch, that it's so hard that you wish you had your old life back, and it could creep in so easily. It could come to you so easily when you least expect it. Whether you move back because of your purpose, because of freedom, because of your family, just understand why you move back, and always remind yourself how important your why is for you, that had made you moved back. So you go back to your why when things get hard, because there are days that it's not easy. Just like if you were anywhere else in your life, there are days where you ask yourself, what are you doing? So especially having had moved to a different country, there will be definitely days where you're going to ask yourself why. And you need to define your why very clearly, because you're going to need to go back to it time and time again until you have your life settled, you have thought about your purpose and everything. Share with me what your biggest fear or your biggest questions are in the comments, and hopefully I will be able to answer with a video, or just comment down below and answer in the comments. Let's continue the conversation. Make sure to like the video if you did, and subscribe for more videos.